I run my hands over the regulator one more time, checking the seal where it connects to my helmet. 800 feet down means no room for equipment failure. At that depth, a broken seal doesn't just end the dive, it ends you. Hawkins, you ready? Brody's voice carries across the deck of the Meridian, cutting through the sound of waves against the hull. Almost. I test the emergency release on my weight belt, then check my dive computer. The numbers look good, but numbers don't mean much when you're dropping into water that could crush a car. Holly stands near the dive bell, shuffling through a stack of waterproof documents for the third time this morning. She's got that look she gets when she's found something in the archives, like Christmas morning and final exams rolled into one. The SS Prometheus, she says, holding up a faded photograph. Disappeared March 15th, 1943, somewhere in these waters. No distress signal, no survivors, no wreckage ever recovered. Brody takes the photo and squints at it. Big ship. What was she carrying? That's the interesting part. Holly pulls out another document, this one marked with official stamps. Military cargo, classified. The manifest just says, experimental equipment, and lists a destination in the Pacific Theater. I walk over to look at the papers. The ship in the photograph stretches nearly 400 feet, with a deep cargo hold and reinforced superstructure, built for carrying heavy loads across dangerous waters. Experimental equipment could mean anything, I say. Radar, sonar, weapons research, or something they didn't want falling into enemy hands, Holly adds. The timing suggests it was heading for the Pacific campaign, but the route doesn't make sense. This area was way off the standard shipping lanes. Carrie looks up from the equipment rack where she's been testing our rebreathers. These systems are good for 8 hours at depth, but I want everyone back up in 6. The deeper you go, the faster things go wrong. She's right. At 800 feet, we're pushing the limits of what human bodies can handle, even with the best gear. The pressure down there is over 25 times what we feel at sea level. One small mistake, and the water turns into a crushing weight that can implode a diving suit in seconds. Christina calls down from the bridge. Weather's holding steady, but I'm seeing storm systems moving in from the west. We've got maybe 6 hours before conditions get rough. Brody nods and checks his watch. That gives us time for 2 dives if we move fast. Hawkins, you and Dr. Roach go down first. Establish the perimeter and locate the main wreck. Carrie and Christina follow once you've confirmed it's safe. I strap my diving knife to my thigh and test the underwater communication system. Holly's voice comes through clear, though she sounds nervous. I've been waiting 3 years to see this wreck, she says. The historical significance alone could rewrite what we know about wartime shipping routes. Just remember, we're not tourists down there, I tell her. Stay close, follow my lead, and don't touch anything until we know what we're dealing with. The dive bell hangs from the ship's crane, a metal sphere designed to carry us down through the crushing depths. It's not comfortable, but it's safer than making the descent on our own. Carrie runs through the final systems check, while Brody reviews the dive plan one more time. You drop to 780 feet, establish visual contact with the debris field, then begin search pattern alpha, he says. If you find the main hull, document position and condition before the second team comes down. I climb into the bell first, settling into the cramped seat and connecting my suit to the internal air supply. Holly follows, clutching her waterproof camera and documentation equipment. The space barely fits both of us, but it beats swimming down through 800 feet of open water. Meridian to dive bell. You're clear for descent. Brody's voice crackles through the comm system. The winch engages and we start dropping. Through the small porthole, I watch the surface disappear above us as we sink into darker water. The pressure gauge climbs steadily. 200 feet, 400 feet, 600 feet. My ears pop despite the suit's pressure regulation. Water temperature's dropping fast, Holly says, watching her instruments. We're passing through the thermocline. The water outside turns from deep blue to black as we descend past the point where sunlight can reach. At 700 feet, I switch on my helmet lights, twin beams cutting through the darkness ahead of us. 780 feet, I announce. Beginning final approach. Through the porthole, something glints in our lights, metal, twisted and scattered across the seafloor like pieces of a giant puzzle. Holly presses against the glass, her excitement obvious, even through the bulky diving suit. There, she says. Debris field, bearing northeast. I signal the surface. Meridian, this is Hawkins. We have visual contact with wreckage at 780 feet, requesting permission to exit the bell and begin search pattern. Permission granted, Brody responds. Watch yourselves down there. The bell settles onto the seafloor with a soft thud. I check my air supply one final time, then open the hatch. The water that rushes in is so cold it makes my suit's heating system work overtime. I swim out first, my lights sweeping across the debris field. Twisted metal fragments stretch in all directions, some pieces as big as cars, others small enough to fit in my hand. Everything's covered in a thin layer of sediment, but I can make out markings on some of the larger pieces. Holly exits the bell behind me, immediately swimming toward a section of hull plating. Her camera flashes as she documents the find, and I can hear her excited breathing through the comm system. Haley, look at this, she says, pointing to letters stamped into the metal. SS Prometheus. We found her. I swim closer to examine the debris. The metal shows signs of massive trauma. Not the clean breaks you'd expect from torpedo damage, but something more violent. Jagged tears and impact marks that suggest the ship came apart under enormous stress. Meridian, this is Hawkins, I report to the surface. We've confirmed identification of the SS Prometheus, beginning search for the main hull section. Copy that, Brody responds. Outstanding work. Document everything and stay in contact. Holly's already moved on to the next piece of wreckage, a section of cargo container with military markings still visible after 7 decades underwater. I follow her deeper into the debris field, our lights creating moving pools of visibility in the endless darkness. The depth gauge on my wrist reads 795 feet. We're deeper than most humans ever go, swimming through the graveyard of a ship that vanished when my grandparents were young. Whatever happened to the Prometheus, whatever cargo she was carrying, it's been waiting down here in the crushing darkness for 80 years. And now we're the first people to find it. I follow the debris trail northwest, my helmet lights cutting twin paths through water so dark it feels solid. Holly swims beside me, her camera flashing every few seconds as she documents each piece of twisted metal we pass. The seafloor here is flat and barren except for the scattered remains of the Prometheus, like someone dropped a jigsaw puzzle into an empty room. Look at this, Holly says, her voice crackling through the comm. She's hovering over something that gleams in our lights, a brass ship's bell, somehow still attached to a section of the bridge superstructure. The metal shows that same violent tearing I noticed before, but the bell itself sits perfect and untouched. I swim closer and read the inscription, SS Prometheus, 1941. Holly's already photographing it from every angle, her excitement obvious even through the bulky diving suit. We keep moving northwest, following the trail of debris that gets denser as we go. Navigation instruments scattered like toys, a compass still pointing north after 8 decades underwater. Personal belongings that make this feel less like a historical discovery and more like swimming through someone's grave. Holly stops at a cluster of sealed metal containers, each one marked with military classifications and German text. These could be intelligence documents, she says, taking careful photos of the markings. If they stayed watertight, we might have actual Nazi communications. Don't get ahead of yourself, I tell her, but I'm photographing them too. Whatever the Prometheus was carrying, someone thought it was important enough to risk these shipping lanes in wartime. We've been swimming for 40 minutes when my lights hit something massive rising from the seafloor ahead. Not debris this time. The main hull, tilted 30 degrees to starboard and resting against a rocky outcrop like a sleeping giant. Jesus. I breathe into my regulator. The ship stretches nearly 400 feet in front of us, its upper structure partially collapsed, but the main cargo hold still intact. Sections of the hull show those same violent tears, but the basic skeleton of the vessel survived whatever destroyed it. Meridian, this is Hawkins, I report to the surface. We've located the main hull section at 795 feet. The wreck is largely intact and accessible for exploration. Outstanding work. Brody's voice comes back immediately. Carrie and Christina are suiting up now. They'll be down in 20 minutes with the heavy equipment. Holly's already swimming toward the ship's bow, her lights playing across the twisted metal. I follow, keeping one eye on our depth gauges. We're at the absolute limit of safe diving depth, where every minute counts and every decision matters. Look at these breach points, Holly says, pointing to holes torn through the hull near the waterline. This wasn't torpedo damage. These explosions came from inside the ship. She's right. The metal curves outward, not inward, and the blast patterns are all wrong for external attack. Someone or something destroyed this ship from within. Sabotage? I ask. Has to be. This makes the discovery even more significant. We're looking at evidence of wartime espionage. Maybe a German agent who got aboard before the ship left port. I swim along the hull, documenting the damage patterns while Holly theorizes about historical implications. The breach points are massive, easily big enough to swim through, and they extend deep into the ship's interior. Whatever happened here was thorough and devastating. 20 minutes later, I spot lights descending from above. Carrie and Christina arrive in the second dive bell, bringing ultrasonic mapping equipment and sample containers. They exit their bell and swim over to join us at the ship's midpoint. This is incredible, Christina says, her voice full of wonder as she takes in the massive wreck. It's like finding a lost city. Carrie's already deploying her equipment, running ultrasonic scans of the hull to map the internal structure. Cargo holds look intact, she reports. We should be able to access at least 3 of the main compartments. We spread out along the hull, each team member focusing on different aspects of the exploration. Christina takes water samples from inside the breach points, while Holly documents the ship's construction details. I continue my external survey, swimming along the port side toward the stern. That's when I see them. Deep gouges in the steel, running parallel to the ship's length. Each mark is about 6 inches wide and cuts into the metal like it was soft clay. They're spaced evenly, maybe 2 feet apart, and they extend for nearly 100 feet along the visible hull. Holly, come look at this, I call out. She swims over, camera ready. What did you find? I point to the scratch marks. These gouges, they're too regular to be impact damage. Holly examines them through her camera viewfinder. Probably coral growth patterns. You see this kind of scoring on old wrecks where marine life attaches to the metal. But I've seen coral damage before, and this isn't it. These marks are too deep, too uniform. They look deliberate, like something with claws dragged itself along the hull, something big. The spacing's wrong for coral, I tell her, and look how deep they go. Holly's already moved on to photograph other sections of the wreck. We're at 800 feet, Haley. There's no marine life down here large enough to make marks like that. She's probably right. At this depth, most creatures are small and adapted for the crushing pressure. But the gouges bother me anyway. especially the way they follow the ship's lines so precisely. I swim back to rejoin the team, pushing my concerns aside. We've got limited bottom time and an incredible discovery to document. Whatever made those marks, it happened decades ago. Still, I can't shake the feeling that something about this wreck doesn't add up. The damage patterns, the strange location, those 2 regular scratches in the steel. The Prometheus didn't just sink. Something happened to it down here in the crushing darkness. Something that left its mark on 400 feet of solid steel. I swim through the blast hole in the starboard hull, following Carrie, who's carrying the cutting torch for any sealed compartments we might find. Inside, our lights cut through the darkness to show rows of wooden crates stacked almost to the ceiling. Most are still tied down after 7 decades underwater. Holly heads straight for the nearest crate and starts photographing the military markings. Christina tests the wood with her sampling tools, checking how well it's held up. I swim deeper into the hold, surprised by how well the ship's structure has survived, despite the massive holes torn through its sides. The cargo hold stretches back farther than I expected, maybe 60 feet from the breach to the rear bulkhead. Water moves differently in here, slower, heavier, like the ship's walls are holding back more than just the ocean. My depth gauge reads 798 feet, and I can feel the pressure in my joints even through the suit's protection. These markings are incredible, Holly says, her voice tight with excitement. Wehrmacht classifications, but also SS symbols. This wasn't regular military cargo. Carrie swims along the port wall, running her hands over the steel plating. The structural integrity is better than it should be. Whatever hit this ship, it didn't compromise the main cargo areas. In the back section, I find something that makes me stop dead in the water. A perfectly round hole punched through the steel wall. 8 feet across, easy. The edges curve inward like something huge forced its way through from outside. The metal shows those same smooth scoring marks I saw on the outer hull, but deeper here, more deliberate. I wave the team over. Carrie arrives first, pulling out her measuring tools. Jesus, she whispers, running the tape around the opening circumference. The force required to create this, it's not possible with any known weapon from that era. Holly keeps working on the cargo, prying open a broken crate with her crowbar. Inside are metal cylinders, each one about the size of a coffee can and marked with radiation symbols in German writing. Christina immediately backs away from the containers. Those might be radioactive, Nazi weapons research. Don't touch anything. Brody's voice crackles through our comm system. Document everything, but keep your hands off those cylinders until we know what we're dealing with. Holly's camera flashes as she photographs the containers from every angle. The markings suggest these are experimental materials, possibly uranium compounds. If the Prometheus was carrying nuclear research, that would explain why the ship was off the normal shipping routes, Christina adds. They were trying to keep this cargo secret. The team spreads out to keep cataloging while I swim back to that strange hole in the wall. I run my gloved hands along the smooth edges, trying to figure out what could have done this. The metal feels almost polished, like something rubbed against it repeatedly over time. A vibration moves through the water around me, too low to hear but strong enough that I feel it in my chest. I freeze, holding my breath and listening through the water. Nothing but the sound of my teammates working and the distant hum of our equipment. Then it comes again, stronger this time, like a bass note played through the ship's hull. Something very large is moving out there in the darkness beyond our lights. Did anyone else feel that? I ask through the comm. Carrie looks up from her measurements. Feel what? The vibration pulses again, and this time I see Carrie's eyes widen behind her mask. She felt it too. There's something moving outside the ship, I say, swimming back toward the team. Something big. Holly doesn't look up from her documentation. Probably just the current shifting debris around. We're in a complex underwater environment. But I know the difference between current and movement, between random ocean noise and something alive. Whatever's out there, it's not debris. Christina swims over to join me at the hole in the bulkhead. How big do you think it would have to be to make a hole like this? I study the opening again, trying to imagine what could punch through steel plating this thick. Bigger than anything that should be living at this depth. The vibration comes back, longer this time, and I feel it through the soles of my boots where they touch the ship's deck. Something is definitely moving in the water around us. Something that makes the entire wreck shake when it passes by. We should report this to the surface, I tell the team. Holly finally looks up from her work. Report what? That we heard some underwater noise? Brody will think we're losing our nerve. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm letting the depth and the darkness get to me. But those vibrations feel too regular, too purposeful to be random ocean movement. I swim back to the circular hole and peer through it into the darkness beyond. My lights don't penetrate far enough to see what's on the other side, but I can feel water moving through the opening in slow, rhythmic currents, like something breathing. I hold up my hand for silence and point toward the circular hole in the bulkhead. Everyone stop what you're doing and listen. The team freezes. Holly looks annoyed, her camera halfway to another shot of the radioactive cylinders. Christina floats motionless near the cargo crates. Carrie stops measuring and turns toward me. The vibration comes again, a deep thrumming that moves through the water and into our bones. This time everyone feels it. Christina's eyes go wide behind her mask. It's coming from deeper in the ship, I say, swimming toward the hole. Something's moving in there. Holly immediately objects. We can't waste time chasing underwater acoustics. Our bottom time is almost up, and this cargo represents the most significant wartime discovery in decades. But Carrie's already packing her measuring equipment. I'll check it out. Could be structural collapse we need to know about. I'm coming with you, I tell her, even though Holly's shaking her head. This is exactly the kind of distraction that ruins expeditions, Holly says. We have documented proof of Nazi nuclear research, and you want to go exploring random ship sections. I ignore her and follow Carrie through the circular opening. The hole leads into what must be the engine room, though it's hard to tell with all the destruction. Our lights reveal massive boiler sections torn apart and scattered like toys. Pieces of machinery are embedded in the walls at impossible angles. Look at this damage pattern, Carrie says, running her hands along a twisted steam pipe. This wasn't an explosion. Something crushed these boilers from the outside. She's right. The metal shows compression damage, not blast fragmentation. Whatever did this applied enormous pressure over time, slowly crushing the ship's power plant into scrap. We swim deeper into the engine room, following a path between collapsed ductwork and scattered debris. The water feels different here, heavier somehow, like it's been sitting undisturbed for decades. My depth gauge reads 802 feet, and I can feel the pressure in my skull despite the suit's regulation. At the engine room center, we find another circular hole, this one even larger than the first. Maybe 10 feet across, punched straight through the deck plating into the ship's lower sections. The edges show those same smooth scoring marks, but deeper and more pronounced. Jesus, Carrie whispers, measuring the opening. Whatever made this hole is bigger than anything that should exist at this depth. A deep groaning sound rolls through the water around us, making the entire ship's hull vibrate. It's not mechanical, too organic, too purposeful. Something alive is moving in the darkness below us. I feel my pulse quicken as the sound continues. rising and falling like a whale song, but deeper, more resonant. The vibrations travel through the steel plating and into our bodies, a bass note that seems to come from everywhere at once. "We need to get back to the others," I tell Carrie. She nods, already swimming toward the hole we came through. We move quickly through the engine room debris, our lights cutting paths through the twisted machinery. Behind us, that groaning sound comes again, longer this time. And I swear I can feel something large shifting in the water below. We emerge back into the cargo hold to find Holly and Christina documenting what looks like experimental sonar equipment mixed in with the radioactive materials. Holly barely glances up when we return. "Find anything interesting in your side expedition?" she asks, not bothering to hide her irritation. "Major structural damage," I report, "and something's moving in the lower sections of the ship." Christina immediately stops her sampling work. "Moving how?" "Something big. We heard vocalizations, felt vibrations through the hull." Holly finally looks up from her camera. "Vocalizations? At 800 feet? There's no marine life at this depth capable of producing sounds large enough to vibrate a ship this size." Before I can respond, Brody's voice crackles through our comm system with unusual urgency. "All divers, this is Meridian. Weather's deteriorating faster than predicted. I need you to begin ascent procedures immediately." Holly's frustration is obvious, even through her diving mask. "We're not finished documenting the cargo. This discovery is too important to leave incomplete." "Negative," Brody responds. "Stormfront's moving in ahead of schedule. You've got maybe 20 minutes before conditions become dangerous for recovery." As we start gathering our equipment, that deep groaning sound returns, louder and longer than before. The entire cargo hold vibrates around us, and loose debris shifts on the deck plating. That's when I see it. Something huge moves in the darkness beyond the cargo hold's far end, just at the edge of our light range. It flows through the water with a grace that doesn't match any known marine life, too large and too purposeful to be anything that should exist down here. I grab Holly's arm and point toward the movement, but it's already gone, disappeared back into the crushing darkness that surrounds this graveyard ship. "Did you see that?" I ask. Holly follows my pointing finger but sees only empty water. "See what?" The groaning sound comes again, closer now, and I realize whatever's been living in this wreck for the past 7 decades knows we're here, and it's coming to investigate. I grab Holly's arm and point toward the movement, but before I can get the words out, something massive glides past the cargo hold opening. 50 feet of serpentine muscle covered in scales that catch our lights like polished metal. The thing moves with purpose, not random ocean drift. It's circling the wreck, studying us. "What the hell is that?" Carrie whispers. A head the size of a small car appears in the hole we just came through. Dinner plate eyes lock onto our group with unmistakable intelligence. This isn't some mindless deep-sea scavenger. This thing is thinking. The eel's mouth opens, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth, and its throat pulses with bioluminescent patches that light up the cargo hold in sickly green waves. Holly makes a choking sound into her regulator. Christina panics. She hits her emergency ascent and shoots straight up toward the surface, but the creature moves like lightning. Its jaws snap shut around her torso with a wet crunch of metal and bone. Her screams cut through the comm system for maybe 3 seconds before they stop completely. The eel drags Christina's body down into the ship's lower sections. Her dive light keeps blinking inside the thing's throat as it disappears into the darkness below. Holly's breathing turns rapid and shallow. She's hyperventilating into her regulator, frozen against the cargo crates like she thinks staying still will make her invisible. Carrie swims hard for the hull breach we originally entered through, but the eel comes back up from the depths, with Christina's light still glowing in its gullet. It moves to block the exit, that massive head swaying back and forth as it watches Carrie's desperate swimming. "Surface. This is emergency." I try to radio, but my voice comes out as a croak. "We have casualties. Immediate evacuation required." Brody's voice crackles back, urgent and demanding. "Say again? What's your status down there?" The eel's tail whips around faster than anything that size should move. It catches Carrie mid-swim and slams her into the cargo crates. Her helmet cracks against the metal with a sound like breaking glass. Water starts pouring into Carrie's suit through the damaged helmet seal. She thrashes against the cargo containers, trying to reach her emergency air supply. But the eel just watches her drown. Those huge eyes track every movement she makes, like it's learning how we work, how we breathe, how we die. Carrie's struggles get weaker. Her hands stop clawing at the helmet seal. The eel nudges her body with its snout, testing whether she's really dead before losing interest. Now it turns back to Holly and me. This thing has been living in the Prometheus for decades, maybe since the ship went down. It's had 80 years to grow in the crushing darkness, feeding on whatever falls into these depths. And we just swam right into its home. Holly finally moves, pushing off from the crates toward a different hull opening, but the eel flows through the water to cut her off. It's not just hunting us, it's herding us, controlling where we can go. "Meridian, we have multiple casualties," I manage to get out. "Something's down here, something big." "What do you mean something?" Brody demands. "Report your status immediately." The eel's bioluminescent throat patches pulse brighter as it positions itself between us and every possible exit. Those massive eyes never blink, never look away. It knows exactly what it's doing, and it's not finished with us yet. I understand the eel's hunting us on purpose now, using the wreck's twisted metal to corner us like sheep in a pen. Holly stays frozen against the cargo crates, probably hoping it won't see her if she doesn't move, while the thing pushes its huge snout against Carrie's floating body, testing it. Then those jaws unhinge and swallow her whole, helmet and all. Now it's turning toward Holly, moving slow and deliberate through the water. I've got maybe seconds before my friend dies. I hit my emergency beacon and swim straight at its head, slashing with my diving knife at those massive eyes while yelling to pull its attention off Holly. "Hey! Over here!" The eel jerks back and lunges at me, missing by inches as I duck behind a collapsed cargo crane. Its tail whips around, smashing what's left of the wooden crates and sending those radioactive cylinders tumbling through the water like deadly confetti. At least Holly can move now. She pushes off toward a different hull opening, swimming hard for the gap. But the thing abandons me and goes after Holly with terrifying speed. It knows she's the easier target. Those jaws snap shut around her waist just as she reaches the opening, yanking her back into the cargo hold like a rag doll. I hear Holly's last scream through the comm system before it cuts to static. Now I'm alone with this monster. The eel drops Holly's body and starts hunting me with fresh focus, moving through the water in deadly curves as it blocks off every possible exit. This isn't random predator behavior. This creature's learning from each kill, showing intelligence that makes it so much worse than just another deep-sea scavenger. Brody's voice breaks through my headset, demanding answers. "Meridian to dive team. Report your status immediately. We're reading multiple emergency beacons." I can't answer, while the eel circles tighter, its glowing throat patches getting brighter as it prepares for the killing blow. Every time I try to reach for my comm, the thing moves to cut me off. Those dinner plate eyes track my every movement. It knows I'm trapped. I see one chance, a busted section of the ship's upper structure that opens straight to deep water. But getting there means swimming right past that massive head, and this thing moves faster than anything should at this depth. The eel coils its body, positioning itself for a strike. Bioluminescent patches pulse along its throat in waves of sickly green light. I grip my diving knife tighter, knowing it's useless against something this size, but maybe I can hurt it enough to create an opening. The creature lunges forward, jaws wide enough to swallow me completely. I dive down and roll left, feeling those needle teeth scrape against my air tank. The eel's momentum carries it past me, and I kick hard toward the superstructure opening. Almost there. 20 feet. 15. The tail comes around like a whip, slamming into my side and sending me spinning into the cargo hold wall. My ribs scream inside the suit, but nothing feels broken. The eel turns for another pass, moving with that horrible intelligence. It's not just trying to kill me, it's playing with me, learning how I move so it can do this better next time. Next time. With the next group of divers who find this wreck, I push off the wall and swim straight up toward the superstructure gap, using every ounce of strength I have left. The creature follows, its enormous length weaving through the water as it closes the distance. But the twisted metal around the ship's bridge section slows it down, forces it to navigate carefully through the debris. I shoot through the opening with the eel's jaws snapping shut just inches behind my fins. Open water. Finally. I can feel the thing's huge body smashing through the superstructure behind me, destroying everything in its path to follow me up. Time to find out if this monster will chase me all the way to the surface. I wait until the eel positions itself between me and the main hull breach, then push off toward the superstructure opening with everything I have left. My legs pump against the water as I rocket through the twisted metal framework around the ship's bridge section. The creature attacks immediately. Those massive jaws slam shut just inches behind my fins, close enough that I feel the water displacement pushing me forward. The eel's huge body follows me through the superstructure, smashing through support beams and collapsed deck plating like they're made of paper. But the tight space works in my favor. The thing can't reach full speed while navigating the wreckage, and I shoot through gaps too narrow for its bulk. I reach open water and hit both my buoyancy compensator and emergency inflation system, blasting toward the surface at a pace that would normally kill me. Right now, decompression sickness seems like a better option than becoming fish food. The eel emerges from the wreck behind me, its enormous length weaving through the water as it closes the distance. Those bioluminescent throat patches glow brighter as it gains speed in the open ocean. At 400 feet, my head starts spinning from the rapid ascent. Nitrogen bubbles form in my bloodstream, making my thoughts fuzzy and my vision blur at the edges. But I can see those bright patches rising from below like climbing stars, getting closer with each second. I drop my weight belt and toolkit, cutting as much drag as possible while keeping my air supply for the final push. The gear tumbles into the darkness as I rocket upward. At 200 feet, the eel's jaws snap shut exactly where my legs were moments before. The shock wave from its attack pushes me higher, adding to my momentum as I fight to stay conscious. The surface appears as faint brightness above when the creature finally gives up. It hovers in the water column, watching me rise, but doesn't follow into the shallower depths. Whatever this thing is, it's spent decades in the crushing darkness and doesn't want to leave its territory. I break through gasping and immediately throw up seawater, my body rejecting everything as decompression hits hard. The Meridian's emergency crew grabs me before I can sink back down, hauling me aboard while I try to form words through chattering teeth. Something down there, I manage between heaves. Killed them all. Brody kneels beside me on the deck, his face tight with concern. What happened to the others? Where's your team? Gone. I can't stop shaking, whether from cold or shock or the nitrogen still bubbling through my system. Something old, something huge. Been living in that wreck since the war. That's impossible, Brody says, but his voice lacks conviction. He's seen enough strange things in 40 years at sea to know the ocean keeps its own secrets. I grab his jacket with hands that won't stop trembling. It's still down there, waiting. Don't let anyone else dive that site. The crew wraps me in thermal blankets as the Meridian's engines roar to life, racing away from the coordinates that cost me 3 friends. I stare back at the dark water, knowing that thing is still circling the Prometheus 800 feet below, waiting for the next group of explorers to find what should have stayed buried in the deep.